How you doing, people? Welcome to the Fit for 90 podcast. I'm your host, Cayman Bandel, footballer and strength and conditioning coach. Today I want to talk about why more gym doesn't equal more gains. I think it's a massive mistake so many players are making at the moment, and I've kind of been culprit to this myself in the past, and I wanted to break it down on why it's not the best way to go around things. Now, a lot of it comes down to your recovery. I think most players think that the answer to progress is actually doing more gym work, being on the grind a lot more, doing more sessions, especially like nowadays when you go on social media. It's like, oh, get up at 5 a.m, get up at 4 a.m. I see some people get up at 3 a.m. just to go to the gym. It's like, that's usually at the sacrifice of your recovery. Because if you're not recovering properly, you're getting slower, you're getting weaker, and you're likely going to be a lot more injury prone. I was the player doing this, and we've had players in the program before they've joined us. They'll be training like 6-7 days a week in the gym. And I've had some players, like, they play football 9 times a week. I'm like, there's only 7 days in a week. How are you managing that? And the performance is dropping off. And it was very much the case for myself, where I was doing so much with my gym work. I was really locked in, but my performance was just, I just couldn't perform on a game day. And I couldn't understand why. And then once I start taking care of my recovery, and this is what we see with a lot of players in the program, is once we start taking care of the recovery side of things, they start to hit PBs. They start to see gains in their strength, their speed, their sleep improves, their mood improves. There's so many benefits when we start to get the balance right, and we call this kind of load management throughout the week. We keep them fresh for football while still getting exposure to the gym. I'm not saying don't go to the gym, but living in the gym and hoping it's going to improve your football performance, it doesn't really add up. More is not always better, okay? And a lot of it comes down to being under-recovered, and this often leads to fatigue, it leads to tightness, and a lack of sharpness on match day. So the first thing I want to speak about is the overtraining trap. I think a lot of footballers get caught in the mindset that it's almost like that bodybuilding mindset of having no days off, but football is all about performance. And to perform at your absolute best, you need to have recovery and rest scheduled in. It's not just about going into the gym and just chasing that pump all the time. And if you're training like that, and even still if you're training like that in 2025, like, there's still time to change, but you have to adapt your training if you're serious about your football performance. If you're not that serious about your performance, crack on as a bodybuilder and train as a bodybuilder, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to purely just look good and you play football on the side, that's fine. However, the gym work you do, especially like a bodybuilder, will to an extent limit you on a football pitch, and you can get kind of imbalances. You can tighten up a little bit, especially the way a lot of bodybuilders train nowadays, and that can impact your football. So you definitely want to have some element of plyometrics, jump training, power training, heavy lifting in there, and also making sure you're not just training one plane of motion. That's why bodybuilding training doesn't work, because it doesn't focus on those things. Now, it's important to remember, coming back to this overtraining trap which I'm speaking about, is that muscles don't grow in the gym. You don't get faster when you're in the gym or on the pitch training your speed. All of this stuff happens during your recovery, on your rest days. And this is one of the biggest shifts that I made, was calling my rest days growth days. And when I started doing that, it made me really take my recovery days seriously, because I used to be terrible at it before. But when I started thinking, actually, when I'm in the gym, I'm breaking my body down. But when I step out of the gym, when I'm at home, like I am now, when I'm resting, recovering, that's when I'm growing and getting stronger and faster and fitter. And what happens is, if you're constantly breaking down the body without any time to rebuild, it leads to what we call overtraining or overreaching. It's almost like playing a match every single day, imagine. Like, you're never going to perform well. You might perform well on the first day. Second day, you might be okay. The third day, you're going to be terrible. Fourth day, it's going to be a complete write-off, right? Now, signs that you're stuck in the trap is when you turn up on match day, you just feel heavy, you're struggling to focus, you feel lethargic, even in the warm-up, and maybe after the warm-up, you're already feeling fatigued. If you're always feeling tired and you feel like you can't hit top speed, if you feel like you've only just got one speed throughout the whole game, it's probably a sign that you're stuck in that overtraining trap. And if your joints and your body's aching, even after rest days and recovery days, that's also a sign that you could be stuck in this overtraining, or what we call overreaching trap. And it means you need to make some changes before it gets to something more serious, where you lead to kind of this burnout, which I've experienced myself, and it takes weeks, if not months, to recover from that. And it's the worst position to be in, because you want to train hard, you want to improve your performance, but your body's just saying no, like, you've pushed me too hard for too long. I'm not gonna play ball. So ask yourself, do you feel sharper week to week, or are you just constantly feeling sore? If you're constantly feeling sore, there's a change that you need to make there. Now, a lot of it comes down to your recovery. When we talk about recovery, we're talking about sleep, we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about mobility. These are, in fact, sleep in particular is a number one performance enhancer. It's a natural performance enhancer. 90%, I'd say, of players just completely waste it. Sleep helps boost testosterone. It will help you boost your reaction time. It will help you boost your sprint ability and your ability to run in the second half. Even just one night of 5 hours sleep can reduce your sprint speed by up to 10%. One night of 5 hours sleep can reduce sprint speed by up to 10%. There's studies that show this. So you have to really, really maximize and optimize your sleep. That's number one. Now, a lot of players, the mistake they make is they'll focus on foam rollers, they'll focus on cold plunges, they'll focus on getting steps in, they'll focus on mobility flows. There's like, these things are great. Massage guns, like these things are fantastic, but that is all like the icing and the cherry on top of the cake. The cake itself being sleep, nutrition. You need to get those two things right first before you can then add mobility in, before you can start adding foam rollers in, before you can start adding cold plunges in, because those things mean nothing if your sleep is shit and your nutrition is a shit show. So sleep is really, really important. It's a natural performance enhancer. Try and aim for at least 8 hours per night. It's not always doable. I know, especially in today's kind of day and age, everyone's on the go. Work schedules are crazy, especially for some of the guys in the program. Like they've got crazy work schedules, and even if you've got kids, like I've got 3 kids, like I know sleep is an absolute shit show, and it's just one of those things that takes a hit sometimes. But even still, if you're still dialed in to trying to maximize the amount of sleep that you are able to get with your specific situation, it's going to put you in a much better position than just not focusing on it at all. Once your sleep's in a good place, in fact, alongside your sleep, we need to look at your nutrition, and you need to think like, how is my nutrition fueling my performance? Have you got enough protein in there for the muscles to actually repair and get stronger? Because they're like the building blocks for that. Have you got enough carbohydrates in the diet to restore the energy that you're burning through your intense training? A lot of players cut their carbs, which is an absolute rookie mistake. You need a lot of carbohydrates in your diet, especially as an athlete and a footballer, to make sure that you are able to recover properly and replenish your energy stores to be able to go and train again. And then, of course, hydration falls in there as well. Like, are you hydrating properly? Water sometimes isn't enough. The amount that we sweat, especially during the summer months, in fact, even during the winter months, but particularly during the summer months, the amount of sweat that we lose through, the amount of electrolytes we lose through sweat, we have to replace that and put that back into the body. Otherwise, your muscles, your body is not going to perform as best as it can. And it's really important you take care of the hydration along with your protein, along with the carbohydrates, along with your micronutrients, things like veg and salads. So what's the quickest way and the best way you can kind of maximize this? I would say start focusing on your pre and post workout nutrition. Really maximize that first. Fuel yourself properly with carbohydrates before a session, so you've got plenty of energy in the session. And then post session, make sure you're getting plenty of protein with a balance of carbs and maybe some healthy fats as well. That will give you a really quick win. It's a really quick way to just to start building out your nutrition, and then you can maybe start looking at breakfast. You can maybe start looking at dinner a bit more, maybe looking at lunch. But if you can just get pre and post workout nutrition together first, it'll put you in a good position to then start maximizing other areas of the day where you want to improve your nutrition. Once you get your sleep and nutrition in a good place, we can then look at things like mobility. Now, mobility isn't just stretching. A lot of players, they think when I say mobility, they think, oh yeah, like static stretching, just holding a stretch for 30 to 60 seconds. That's not what this is. 5 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes of mobility a day keeps your joints supple and keeps your joints loose. Especially around the hips. I would say most players right now, around the pelvic region, if you focus on your hips, everything stems from that core, from the pelvis. So if you can focus on your hips, I'd probably throw the feet in there as well. Focus on your feet and your ankle mobility. Those two areas are super important because a lot of injuries that we see stem from one of those two areas. They're either stiff in the hips, they're tight in the lower back, maybe the glutes are tight, the hamstrings are tight, maybe they've got limited ankle mobility, maybe the feet are weak, and this has knock-on effects on other areas of the body. You would be shocked at the amount of players that we've seen come into the program and they said, I've got like a hamstring injury, for example, and then we say, well, let's try and get to the root cause of this. Let's try and find out why you're experiencing this, and suddenly you can see that their hip mobility isn't great, their glutes are really, really tight, their lower back's weak, their feet and their ankle mobility is poor. You can understand why the player gets injured. So once we start to take care of these areas of the body through not just stretching, not just mobility work even, but actually loading that mobility with some weight, so doing gym work with good form, going through full ranges of motion, that's the best way to build mobility, is lift weights through a full range, because you'll get strong through that range as well. We call it lengthening and strengthening. You're doing two things there. And if you can do that in the gym, it's a really, really good place to be in. It's a good way to build robustness, and the term you hear, injury prevention, is a great way to develop that. But you have to know what you're doing in the gym. And again, this kind of comes back to that, what I said at the beginning, the bodybuilding training doesn't really hit the brief. You need to make sure you're loading certain movements through certain ranges with some decent loads. From there, you want to create some sort of system for yourself, and this is something we use inside the program. Ours in the program is called our recovery point system, okay, or the recovery formula, the peak recovery formula. Now, a really simple tip for you guys, if you're listening to this, is the SET-R. SET-R being SETR: sleep, eat smart, time that you spend in the gym, and restoration and recovery. Now, let me break this down. For example, sleep. Are we getting 7 to 9 hours a night? You could literally create a little list on your phone and just tick this off every single day. Have I slept 7 to 9 hours? Am I eating smart? So have I got at least anywhere between 160 and 180 grams of protein per day? Most players fall within that category. Some will be a little bit more. Maybe, I wouldn't say go less than that. Some might be, depending on what type of kind of what your body's like. But most players fall between kind of the 160, 180, maximum kind of 200 for protein intake. Are we getting that in the diet? You have to look at that. You have to track that. You have to know those numbers. We then look at time in the gym. How long am I spending in the gym? Am I spending 45 minutes like our guys and girls do in the program? 60 minutes at a stretch, maybe if you had in a warm-up and a cool-down? Or am I spending an hour and a half, 2 hours lifting? If that sounds like you, there's some change that need to be made. You need to bring that down a little bit, because you don't need to be spending 2 hours in the gym. A lot of it is overkill. After about 40 minutes, quite honestly, a lot of it is overkill. You're not really making gains during that time. Anything after 40 minutes. And then we look at restoration and recovery. So am I ticking off some form of mobility work every single day? Am I doing some form of active recovery? We like to call it active recovery in the program. So am I moving on my rest days? There's no good just sitting in front of the sofa watching Netflix with a bag of Maltesers. It's not going to help your recovery. Am I getting out for a walk? Am I doing the mobility work? Am I maybe jumping on the bike and then pairing it with mobility? There's lots of different ways you can go around it. But just, if there's one thing you take from today, is the SETR, SET-R. Sleep properly, eat smart, eat enough protein. Don't spend hours in the gym. So the time you spend in the gym, and make sure you're restoring and doing your active recovery. Don't just sit around on rest days. If you want to perform at 100%, recovery is a requirement. Rest and recovery is an absolute requirement to make sure that you maximize your training when you are in the gym. And ultimately, this will have a knock-on effect on your performance, but you do not need to be living in the gym to achieve this. The biggest thing I want you guys to take away from today is more so trying to schedule in more recovery days. Where can you take gym sessions out and add a recovery day in? Now, a lot of this will come down to knowing how to structure your gym workouts across the week, making sure you get enough exposure to all the different qualities you need, making sure you also got power and speed work in there as well. But then being able to plug the recovery days in so you maximize those training days. This is something that we help a lot of our players do. And I'll do this for my players, to be honest with you, when they come inside the program. But it's important that you understand and you have that structure in place to be able to implement this recovery and rest that we're speaking about. But if your performance is dipping, it's not because you're lazy. More often than not, it's never because you're lazy. A lot of players, and a lot of you listening to this, have got really good intentions. But it's because you're under-recovered right now. It's because you're overtraining. It's because you're overreaching. Now, I've got a recovery point system, as I mentioned in the program. If you want to take a look at it and if you need help breaking this down, all you need to do is DM me recovery or comment recovery anywhere around this video. I will send you a message and I'll break it down on how that looks for you, and you can get a better insight into exactly how to recover properly to maximize your performance. I hope you guys took a lot from this today. If you've got any questions, as always, drop me a message on Instagram at coach_Cayman or anywhere around this video where there's a comment box, and I will be in touch with you.